Sorry. Welcome to Where's Your Focus podcast. I'm Karen Alexander.
And I am Linda Melanson.
Hello. Just wanted to say, our last podcast, we had such a great turnout. We had, and we really enjoyed the participation. So if you're watching, let us know you're watching with your comments. If you have any questions, whatever, write them in. We really enjoyed last week's. Both Linda and I spoke about it after, Linda, right?
Yes.
And we so enjoyed it. We so enjoyed the participation that happened last week and the new viewers that we had. So that was great. If you're watching, let us know you're watching, and by all means share out the video, because the more we have participation, the better we like it. Okay. So today we are, first of all, we're going to go into the Schumann's resonance, which I can't do a whole lot about today because unfortunately and there's Linda's cat. Oh my. One of the sites for the Schumann's resonance is down, so we're not able to see anything that's happened. I don't check it during the week. I usually go, unless, I'm feeling something, then I'll go in and have a look and see what's going on. But normally I go in on the morning of the podcast so I can get as up to date as possible. And this morning on the HeartMath website, there's absolutely nothing. It just says, sorry, we're down. There's no information available. On the other website that I go on, which is disclosurenews.it, that's the website for Italy and Russia. And that one was pretty much the same as what it's been the last week or so, the fluctuation that's going on there, anywhere between 7.3 hertz and 8.3 hertz. It's just kind of fluctuating up and down. The only difference there was on March the 1st, which was probably late night, February 28th and into March 1st. There was a big influx of light. Really, so you can, if you go to the website, you can see it yourself. And it's really funny because actually on one of the groups that we're both a part of, and that's the Schumann's Resonance on Facebook. I think it was there that I saw it. Linda, I'm not sure if you saw it or not, but they actually did. I don't know. I mean, a lot of you probably know that Trump had a speech. He was the last speaker on CPAC on February the 28th. So he came in around 5 o'clock in the evening, and they actually did a comparison as to when the speech started, when it finished, and it was after the speech that big influx of light that came in. Is there a correlation? We don't know, right? Some people will say there is. Some people will say, no, that's all crazy, but it is. It's very interesting. Nonetheless, that's approximately the time that we had the big influx of light. And so everything now today is pretty much gone back to the same as what it was. So in the last week, we've still had that variation. So we know there's something going on, right? Yeah. Which we know because we feel it ourselves. So yeah, so that's what's going on with the Schumann's resonance. And next week, hopefully the other website will be online, so that we'll be able to have and then we can do kind of a recap of both weeks, hopefully. Yeah. So what do you have, Linda? What do you have on the moon?
Well, we switched into Scorpio moon yesterday. Okay. So coming out of the weekend, the beginning of the week, we were in a Libra moon. So fast mental processing was happening, learning. It was a great window for a lot of deeper learning, mental capacity. But the Scorpio influence here, and we're also going in the waning moon, right? So now we're coming back. We've done the full moon and we're coming back. So we're kind of clearing up all of the loose ends that we have on that full moon energy, right? So now we're starting to pull the energy back inwards for that new moon. But right now we're going into a time of creativity. So apparently there's like a trio. So the moon, let me see if I get this right. The moon, Venus, and Pluto are all in a perfect alignment. And this was yesterday, so I think we're coming out of it now. But the creativity and the harmony in this trio, I apparently is like very nice. So great for relationships, great for marriage. More passion going on. But now, as we're coming out of that, we might see our moods kind of fluctuating a little bit with the Scorpio moon. And we could see a few struggles in some relationships, like partnerships. So say at work or friends, you may see as things aren't sitting quite well if you don't express what's on your mind, right? So a lot of times we can hold things in, but this is a time when maybe you need to say what you mean. But this is also a time when we could be making new friendships very easily. And the external appearances may be a little bit more important to you.
Oh,
Interesting, right?
Interesting.
And then not tomorrow, but the next day, we'll be going into Sagittarius, going into the weekend. And Sagittarius is more of that dreamy state, very open-minded. You may have some wishful thinking going on. So kind of thinking that you're able to take on more than you can. And maybe the projects that you take on, you're going to get halfway through and be like, what was I thinking? Might have been like that wishful thinking that you were going to get through it. And then you're like, screw it. It's not working out.
Okay. Wow. And Linda, I'm really going to try something here. I'm going to try like writing down over the course of the next few weeks as to what you're saying with regards to the moon, and then going through it, kind of keeping a journal of what it is that you're saying. And then maybe in a week or so, going back and checking to see, or maybe even a little more than a week, if I'm journaling myself, right, going back and trying to decipher whether how I'm dealing with the moons, right? And what's going on there. That would be interesting to do. That would be an interesting little exercise, right?
Yes. Well, I have been trying to pay attention because I've been doing this now. And for me, I find that I'm not like, because I get this information from 3 different sites, and I kind of take the overall what 3 of them are saying, right? And I can see some of the aspects coming out. Like I just get done the Libra aspect, but I am a Libra, so I feel like it kind of affected me a little deeper. So I had some emotional stuff coming up for me over, and but I'm always learning. So learning is just a constant for me.
And you're also going through that cleanse right now as well, right? So there's going to be probably double whammy for you with that.
That's right. But the interesting thing about reading the like the struggles in the partnership is, I have a friend, and it's funny, but yesterday I went and met her at the dog park. And, she was like, oh my God, I have to go. And she just grabbed her dog and left. And I didn't think anything of it. And then I got into the car and she messaged me. She's like, I just want you to know, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to leave you like that. And I was like, don't worry about it. But then when I look at this, it makes sense that maybe that's that trigger inside of her that says, oh, I don't want that stickiness in our friendship or our partnership or whatever.
Right.
So, right.
Wow, that. It's so cool, right? I just want to take a minute, Linda, before you go on getting into the show, and just say hello here to the ladies that are saying hi. So we've got Patricia. Hi, Patricia. And then Daphne Lynn Patton. Hello, Daphne. Patricia sent a link here. She sent a link. That's cool. Thanks, Patricia. That's a link to the Schumann's Resonance. And then Tara. Hi, Tara. So girls, if you want to participate in our conversation, by all means, give us your comment. That's okay. Hi, Ella. Where are you?
Poke her head in. It's Ella's birthday today.
Oh, happy birthday, Ella. My goodness.
I know,
right? How come what's the date today?
Yeah, the 3rd.
The 3rd? Why did I think it was the 9th? Why do I always think it's the 9th? I think it's because my niece, Molly's birthday is on the 9th. And I think I probably get them mixed up. Yeah. Happy birthday, Ella.
Oh, maybe. Yep. Oh, she heard you. She said, thank you. Thank you.
Oh my goodness, so fun. Okay, so what are we getting into today, Linda?
So today we are talking about the ego, which is a very exciting topic. I think that there's a ton of, mixed signals out there around this topic,
Absolutely.
and a lot of shame, right? A
Oh,
lot
yes.
of shame. The ego takes a lot of shame, right?
Mhm.
So what to expect here is, what is the ego? What is that? What is it? What is the purpose of the ego, and how are we going to integrate with the ego? What is that? What does that look like? We integrate with the
Absolutely.
ego all the time. We just don't realize it's happening. We only notice the ego when it's not obeying us.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. So the ego, when we're first born, we don't actually have an ego. We have an ID. I mean, we have a need. We have the need for being fed and all that kind of stuff. But we don't actually have an ego. And an ego is something that we're conditioned with, right? Like we're conditioned. So, and that comes in somewhere around 5, 6, 7 years old is when our ego actually comes in and takes place, right? And what we're conditioned to believe with the ego is we're conditioned to believe that we are separate. So there's kind of a duality conditioning that comes into play there, where we believe that, I'm here and you're there and you're there. So and everything is separate, right? So it's kind of like, it's like it kind of centers around judgment, because what it does is it makes us believe that there's right and wrong, good and bad, pretty and ugly, sinful and holy, right? There's that division that it brings in there, and that's what the ego is. So basically it's like a veil of what we think we are and what we actually are inside.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so it's like an illusion of the mind, basically.
Mhm.
But it's also a survival mechanism, and that's what its purpose is, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a tool.
That's right. And you
Oh,
have to think, we're animals, right? So we come from
mhm.
the animal kingdom. And just like when you get a puppy or you get a cat, you have to train it. It's the same idea, right? And the more that you give it direction, the better it is able to survive and work in your favor.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Absolutely. So it operates to satisfy, basically. It operates to satisfy our desires, right? It is, and to satisfy our desires on a socially appropriate ways as well, right? Because remember, it's all conditioning.
It is all conditioning. Yes. Yes, and talking about from when we're born to like 5, 6, 7 years old, and there we're not exactly sure. I don't think anybody knows exactly when. I think it's different
No,
for everybody.
that's
But
right.
you are at 100% an emotional learner before that, and that's why they say you're such a sponge and you're learning so much. But all of that is literally going straight into your subconscious mind. So when the logical mind comes into play, which is your ego,
Oh, yeah.
it starts to categorize those early experiences according to what it because beliefs that get laid in those early years that the mind will start to add thoughts to.
Right. Because the emotions come first.
The emotions come first. And it's been scientifically proven, even when it comes to thinking, the emotions are triggered first. And then the mind says, oh, the last time you felt that emotion, we knew this, that, and that was going on. That must be what's going on here. So it automatically jumps in with this survival mechanism. And that's the survival mechanism of it.
Exactly. Yeah, that's it exactly.
Yeah.
So, and there's a lot of people that believe that, and Linda and I are both on the same page on this, which we are on a lot of things anyway, but a lot of people who are spiritual, and we had mentioned this at the end of the last podcast, I believe, is that people will tell you, and people will say, you have to kill the ego. Like, you got to get rid of the ego. You got to kill the ego. That's not my belief. And it's not Linda's belief either. If we are one, if we're all one, how can we kill a part of us? Right? If the ego is a part of us, it might not be all of us. It might not be our true self, but it's still part of us. And it's a tool that we can use for growth.
That's
right?
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it can be an enemy. It can be an enemy, there's no doubt.
Yes.
But once it's integrated and once you know how to use the ego to its fullest potential, then it is one of your greatest tools.
Yes. It loves to learn.
It loves to learn.
And that is one of the biggest aspects that I, as a younger, adult, I struggled a lot. I had a really hard time going through, and my ego was, wild, just like everybody else's. And it wasn't until I really allowed myself to understand that learning is a huge part of our human experience. And that the more that you can feed the mind and keep it learning new things about yourself, new things about the world, new things about your emotions, the more controlled it is, and the more you see that it's actually there to serve you.
Exactly. And so discerning the voice of what the ego is a big, I guess it's something that we have to learn, right? We have to know what the ego is, and when the ego is speaking and when it's not speaking, basically. And that's probably one of the hardest parts, is discerning what the voice is, because what happens is, in the defense mechanism, it comes down to fear, right? So if there's something that you're fearful of, as an example, then that ego is going to come in big time, because it's going to try to protect you against that fear. So the more you feel fear, the more your ego is going to take over. And together, the ego and the fear are going to bring off your triggers, right? And they're going to trigger your deepest demons. So they're going to trigger the judgment. They're going to trigger the anger. They're going to trigger, the jealousy, the blame, the hostility, any kind of resentment that you may feel, or anything like that. So when you're feeling those things, when those emotions come up, and you kind of feel that rage come up, know that that's your ego that's speaking to you.
Yeah.
Right?
And it's almost like we get on a loop at that point. So again, the emotion is triggered. Something in the outside world has triggered the emotion. The mind comes online and it says, hey, the last time this happened to us, we decided that we're shit and we're not worth anything, and we're not. And so the mind then starts, and it's feeding that heavy emotion. And then the emotion kicks in again. And it's almost like you get on this loop, right? And until you decide, okay, enough of this. And again, it goes back to learning, what am I to learn from the emotion? And it interrupts the thought pattern and allows something different to come in. Because once we tell the mind, no, let's learn from this, let's learn from what's going on here, the mind says, wait a minute, learn means not to think something that you've already thought, right? It says learn means try to think something new. So then, you might grapple at, different ideas of what could be going on. Right? So now the mind has direction, but the ego is so powerful in so many different ways. Like if we say, okay, I really don't want to go to this meeting. I really am like, don't want to do it. It feels, well, you know what? All of a sudden, when that meeting starts coming up, the ego is like, boom, remember you didn't want to go? Oh, how about we just give you some diarrhea? Or how about we do, and it fulfills what you want. It wants you to be happy.
Yeah. It's like you say, it's a loop, and it kind of makes stories. It makes stories as you go along. It makes up the stories so that you That's the way it works, right?
Yep, exactly it.
Yeah.
So it's pretty amazing when you think about it, because the more that you can integrate with your ego and your mind and work as a coherent emotional, mental, and spiritual being, the more you're raising your vibrations and you're getting higher and higher,
Absolutely.
right?
Absolutely. And you can't think of ego as a bad thing. Ego is not good. It's not bad. It just is. It is, right? It's there.
Yep, that's right. Yep,
So
it's
to
a part of
become
you.
aware of it, to be conscious, that's what it's there for, is it's for us to become aware and become conscious of our own strengths,
That's right.
right? It's to help with the love and the oneness.
Yes. And it's also about how aware you are inside of yourself of the types of thoughts that you're having, because the second that you become aware of, say, a judgment thought or a comparison thought or a what are some other ones, uh what are some other ones? I'm having a hard time thinking of some comparison and judgment.
Yeah, just and that's fine. A comparison in
Yeah.
anything, right? Or a
So it's
judgment in anything.
That's right. So as soon as you become aware in those moments, you have an opportunity. It's an opportunity to say to the mind, we need to work in a coherent way in a new direction, right? So say that you're having a very judgmental thought, and you all of a sudden become aware. Wait a minute, this is not what I want to be thinking. I prefer to think that we're working coherently with this situation, that I'm learning something from this situation, that I am offering something of myself in this situation. That is another thing the ego really likes, is to feel like it's contributing positively. Believe it or not, the ego really thinks it's contributing to your experience and your well-being when it's doing this.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
And it's the same as when you have a pet. If you have a pet and you spend the time with that pet and you teach that pet the right way and how you want that pet to act, the more it acts in your favor, the more you praise it. You need to praise yourself too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I just want to take a quick minute here, and just read
Yes,
what
my
Tara
phone
has said.
died, so I'm not seeing those
Yeah.
messages.
Oh, that's okay. Hi Sue. Sue's came on, Sue Green. I had actually given Sue a shout out at one of our last podcasts. She has tuning in Hampton. And Tara has said, my intake I have come to is it is the software tool for transmuting energy that we are within our emotional. Oh, wait, now Patricia just made a comment and kind of flipped up my. Let me try that again. My intake I've come to is it is a software tool for transmuting energy that we are within, or emotion that we are within, or I think it's supposed to be our emotional body, using the mind within the brain. So it will act as a compass for you. That's neat. That's nice. I like that. And a way to detach from old programming and welcome and embracing the new programming, Patricia says.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And we have a lot of old programming. When our consciousness, like when our ego or our mind comes online between 5, 6, and 7, we come on with a bunch of preconceived ideas of what these early emotions are. And so that is a lot of what we experience when those thoughts are going off. And it's up to us to interrupt those and say, wait a minute, no, let's rethink this. Let's put something new in those places according to those emotions. Right.
Right.
And I'm to the point now where I don't label my emotions, and I can't, I just sit with them unless I really decide that I need to understand them deeper, and then I connect to them and I hear their message, not what the mind has to say about it.
Exactly. And that's the difference, right? That's the difference between understanding or hearing the ego and hearing what your inner self, what your true self is actually telling you. So that's and that's a big thing, because I mean we had this discussion yesterday about how we don't finish our thought when we're in this kind of frame, right? We don't finish the thought. So if we become aware enough that we can say, whoa, hang on a second, let's stop for a minute and really think this through. What is happening here?
That's right.
That's when we're able to pick up what the ego is saying, and understanding and being able to discern ourselves from the ego and know what our actual feelings, our actual thoughts, our actual inner knowledge is
That's right.
at that point.
And the inner knowledge, the more that we tune in to those emotions and that energy that is deeper inside, and we allow that to have a voice, we're actually educating the ego. We're educating our mind so that we're able to think on these higher levels. We're able to connect to these higher ways of thinking.
Exactly.
Love you.
Yeah. So the ego is part of us, but it's not us, right? So how can we say that? Oh God, love her. How can we say that? How can we be sure? How can we know that? All right. So I was in one of the books that I read. There was this experiment and I thought, oh, that's pretty cool. Now let's do that. So how do we untangle ourselves from the illusion that we are ego? Okay. So the first thing that this little experiment said to do was to write down all the things that you are. Okay. So when you write down everything that you are, okay, your ego is constantly changing, right? But your true self doesn't change. Okay. Your ego is constantly changing. So when you write down what you are in this lifetime, okay, your name can be changed. Your body is constantly changing, right? Your personality is always transforming. So that's always changing. So your emotions are constantly coming and going. So you can't, you have to learn to control those as well. So and your memories are coming and going all the time. And then there's false memories. So that's always changing, right? But what is the fabric of all things? What is the thing that never, ever changes? It's consciousness. That's the thing that never, ever changes. We may grow in it, but the consciousness itself. And I mean, science shows us that everything at its core is vibrating at different energies, right? Vibrating at different levels, rather. So that consciousness itself never changes. That's who we are. The ego is just here as our tool, right? So that it comes in, like you say, between 5 and 7 years old, comes in as our tool. And once we truly realize that the ego is part of us, yes, it's a tool, but it's not us. We are absolutely consciousness. And it's kind of hard to think of it like that. And I mean, it takes a lot of time to realize that. But once you've come into that place to where you can go into complete consciousness and understand that it is just pure love, that's what we are. That's what we are. The ego is just here to help us grow into that. Does that make sense?
And just to expand, and yes, consciousness is pure love.
Mm-hmm.
Consciousness is also the energy that runs through us that gives us life.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And it's the consciousness itself, the vibration of the consciousness changes, but the consciousness itself doesn't change.
That's right.
It's just the vibration that changes. And that's what we are.
Yeah. I love that. That's a nice exercise. And very true, right?
It is. Yeah. Let's see what else we got here.
So some other ways to, so at this point now, it's about training the mind, right? It's about helping you to get the mind to serve consciousness, to serve the spirit. That's the higher self, right? And so some of the ways that we do this is through journaling. Journaling is a huge one, because what it does is it forces the mind to finish the thinking, right? And a lot of times, once we write things down on paper, the mind doesn't have to hold on to that stuff anymore. So a lot of times, like minor irritations that bothered you through your day, uh, tasks, things that you have to do, like things like that, once you write them down, that's it. It's gone, right? You don't have to keep holding space in your mind for that. You can let it go,
Absolutely.
right? And it gives more space to the mind to focus on other more important things that need processing. Right. So yeah. So definitely writing things down, like tasks, journaling your feelings and different things like that. Um, Automatic journaling is something that once you start writing and you're just letting the mind do whatever, you'll switch over to writing about emotions and all of these other things. Like it just starts to flow. Right.
It's pretty amazing, actually. It's like when it happens, when you just start going and going and going, it's crazy what comes out.
Yeah. Yeah. And like I say to the people I read for, just put the pen to paper and let it go.
Just let it
And,
go.
a lot of people struggle with what their mind says. And this is something that, the mind is not you, right?
That's
That
right.
is not you. So don't get bogged down by something the mind says. It's not you. So just allow the mind, that's the assumption the mind made about either a situation, about something that you believe about yourself, about a deep emotion. That doesn't necessarily mean that's you. You are a
No,
separate being, although you can change those beliefs. So know that once you see that, oh my gosh, that's what my mind thinks. Well, we can change that. But
that's not true. Yeah, that's
yeah,
not right.
that's not the
But it,
truth.
again, it just keeps telling those stories to us, right? And the stories are not necessarily true.
That's right. Exactly. And in the mind, believe it or not, this is a survival mechanism.
Absolutely.
This
Yep.
is the mind helping you to survive, because when it sees a threat, when the mind sees a threat, it either freezes, runs, or fights.
Yeah.
So when your emotions are coming up and it's a threatening emotion, that's the mind. It's going to come into action. It's going to say, you know what, this is either you're going to fight because listen, this is what happened the last time you had this emotion, and these are the things that so either you're going to fight, you're going to run away, or you're going to freeze, right? So that's
Action
what
or
the
no
mind is
action.
doing,
Yeah.
right? It's trying to make you do one of those things to survive. But we're not in the same environment as we used to be. We're not living in the wild anymore. We have safe homes, we have relationships, we have different ways of living that is safe. So we can start to deprogram these reactions, and it's okay, right? And a lot of times when we deprogram these reactions, we find fear. And the fear is there because that's the body is saying, oh, we should be scared, we need to run, we need to hide, we need to fight, we need to whatever we're supposed to do here. And then you can go into the fear and you say, no, we don't need that anymore. And what do I need to transmute the fear now? And then we're moving into a whole different set of thoughts and ways of reacting to that particular emotion now.
Mhm. Absolutely. And like I had said earlier, the two together, once the fear comes in, the ego comes in to protect. And
Absolutely.
that's when you're triggered. That's when, everything starts happening and you get all those emotions coming up. So when you're able to say, okay, hang on, I know what this is, you become aware, you're able then to change it,
That's right.
right? And no longer listen to those stories that the ego is telling you. Because nine chances out of 10, unless you've really done a lot of work, those stories that are coming up are not true.
They're not
Not
true.
true.
And a great way to work through a lot of those deeper beliefs. Remember, we had talked about it in a previous episode. We write all of those beliefs in red pen,
Yes.
and you skip 2 lines. Okay. So if the mind is like coming, like beating you up bad, Okay. And this can happen, right? We all know that the mind is, you're a this and this or that and that or that. And we can write all of those beliefs in red pen and skip a couple lines and then go back with a black or blue pen and we write the truth. What is the truth? Right? Because, once now we're inserting new thoughts that are attached to these emotions because we know that we're not liars. We're not out to hurt anybody. We all have a common goal of helping the collective. Right. So, but your mind
Absolutely.
can tell you you're a liar. You're out to hurt me or you're out to hurt people. And because it's the reaction. This is some of the deeper beliefs that are going under that fear, right? And when we write
Absolutely.
the truth under those, then we're able to replace that thinking.
And I love that. I love that, Linda. And that's the second time that you've brought it up. I think we talked about it in another podcast. Maybe you just said that. But when we're in school, we're taught, right, that anything in red is wrong. So just the color association with that makes a difference to your mind, to your ego as well. So, when you had a test or whatever in school, the teacher made all your corrections, everything was marked in red, right? No, that was wrong. No, that was wrong. So by doing it the way you've said,
Mhm.
that, yeah, I love that.
Yeah,
I
that's an
think
exercise.
that's great.
Yeah, that's an exercise from Lisa Nichols. I'm not sure if anybody's familiar with her, but she
Oh,
did
okay.
amazing work. She was in, I studied everybody in The Secret, so she was in The Secret.
Right, right, right. I just want to take a quick moment and say there's a bunch of comments coming in, but just Sue says that's a great exercise. Great idea, Patricia. And then we had Jackie, I believe, who came in to say hi. So we just wanted to say hi back to Jackie. Keep the comments coming, ladies. We'll keep checking. Sorry, Linda, you go ahead, finish your thought, what you were talking about there.
Oh, that's okay. So some of the other things that can really clog up the mind and the ego is the news. Sometimes
Oh,
you just got
yes.
to turn it off. It's
A lot
not.
of times.
Yeah, like you can spend. I've been, especially with all the COVID stuff when that stuff hit, I found that it was
Yeah.
really apparent how my mind was kind of taken over with a lot of the stuff that was going on in the world. And I just decided that's enough. I am not, I'm not plugging in. And if anybody put it on my news feed, I'm sorry, I
Yeah.
unfollowed you. Not unfriend you, but I unfollowed you. I don't want to see it.
Yeah.
Like I don't.
Exactly. I mean, we have to know a bit about what's going on, but
Yeah,
there's knowing and then there's overload,
that's right.
right?
And I just don't like to give up my mind space. I'd prefer to keep my mind space working towards how I can help you more, how I can help
Absolutely.
people and the collective more, right?
Mhm.
So that stuff was just other people's lives sometimes too. This was something I had a friend in the past. I'd be at home working and she'd call me. And of course, I'm always there. Like I'm always open
Always.
if they need help in any way. And so, the first couple of times she would call and I would say, okay, well, you need to try this or you need to do that. And the next time it's the same story. You need to try this, and you need to try that. And then after a while, it was like, I'm working and I can't, my mind drive is going in this direction. And I've already told you all of these same things and you're still not putting them into practice. So I need to take mind space and keep it on my work. And still again, and it was, I had to block her because I can't waste the mind space, and it was
Absolutely.
like I was getting worried about her. And it was like, but she's not doing it. She needs to
Mhm.
do the work. I'd love to help, but if you can't
That's
do
it.
the work, if you're not doing just the little things, then
That's it. Like
so
we say, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink.
and that
So we can help with anything that we're able to help with. But if you don't then put those into action,
I know, and that's boundaries,
unfortunately,
right?
and you can only give the same answer so many times, right?
Yeah,
Before it starts affecting you. And then, like you say, you start to worry and everything else. So you have to, and I mean, that's a protection for yourself, right?
that's your boundaries.
So
You gotta have
that's your
boundaries.
boundaries. Exactly.
Because it's the thing is nobody can protect your inner peace except for you,
Absolutely.
right?
Absolutely.
Nobody can do it for you. You have to do it. So you have to protect your mind space the same way.
Yeah. You
Um,
have to find it and then you have to protect it.
That's right. That's right. So grief is another one that, I mean, nobody can tell you your way of grieving, but it is something that can really take over. It can be something that is so heavy and hard to work through, and there's no easy way. You just really have to try to support yourself through that, and the mind can get really hard on you when it gets going, and it's been going on for so long. But there's nothing like compassion, and if you can train your mind to speak to you in a compassionate way, in these moments we can if we can interrupt those, why are you being like, why is this still going on, why are you still doing that, just be like, no, these are our feelings, we're valid in our grief, we're valid in the way that we choose to heal and work through these feelings, right? And that's
Absolutely.
another way that it can really take up a lot of space in the mind, and because in our society we're pushed towards not being emotional beings, the ego just jumps right on board,
Absolutely. Yep. For
right?
sure.
It's trained that way. I mean, we
Mhm.
see that's how everybody else does it, must be the way to do it.
It's just
Un-
reaction, right? It's just reaction.
exactly, until we decide that no, it's not going to be that way anymore, mind, we're going to do it a little bit different. And again, those rewards are important for the mind. Identify unidentified emotions. Again, the mind will grapple at what is happening, right? It will grapple. Even though these emotions are unidentified, they may not be identifiable. It just may be stuff that you have to feel out. It just is what it is, but the mind will grapple at anything to give it identity.
Mhm. Mhm.
And so these are just some of the things that can clog up the mind, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. So going back to integrating the ego, we had talked about journaling, writing, journaling. The other thing that we can do is to explore the ways the ego influences our life, right? Um, we can use meditation, mindfulness. Practicing mindfulness is a big thing of helping there with the grounding and being in the present moment, right? And like you said, staying away from the news and staying away from all that stuff that's not cluttering ourselves. So we're able to ground ourselves and be in the present moment of where we are in our life at this point, in our time at this point, in this present now moment. That's very helpful as well in decluttering.
Absolutely, yes. And don't get bogged down about your meditative practices. Like,
No.
especially if you're a beginner, right? I find for me, when I first started learning meditation, it really helped to listen to guided meditations,
Yes. Yes.
because my mind could focus on a guided meditation, especially visualization guided meditations. Those ones, I mean, they're the best. And I found that for me, I did that for years until I was able to allow my mind to, thoughts were like clouds going by after a while, that I wouldn't attach to them anymore, and
Right.
then I could be in a meditative practice and allow the mind to do its thing, and I would be silent. I could do it in silence. Um,
Absolutely. And it's important to know too that meditation doesn't mean that you're sitting with your eyes closed and meditating. That is one form of meditation, yes, and it's a great form of meditation, but it's not the only form of meditation. You can be meditating while you're doing the dishes. You can be meditating while you're walking through the woods. There's so many ways to meditate, right?
Absolutely, that's exactly it. And that is also another thing, is when we step into the state of flow. So the flow state is when we have spirit, ego, and body all working together in harmony for a common project. So this could be developing a talent. This could be, they say a lot of times when you're in near death experiences, you're stepping into this, and this big problem solving. You'll have big problem solving inspirations at these times. But again, this is all part of learning, right? And you know, when we can connect all three of your aspects of the self, in when you're developing a talent in some way, shape, or form, whatever that is, you're stepping into a deep state of learning. So you're upgrading the ego, right? So the ego is learning how to do something so that it's helping you to work more efficiently or whatever that is. And a lot of times, spirit, I'm spitting all over the place. Spirit is, good thing I'm alone. um, Spirit is moving through you to help you to have these inspirations and knowledge at deeper levels.
Absolutely. And Jackie says the mind is always trying to associate with something. Absolutely.
Mhm.
Absolutely. It has to, right?
It does. Yeah, that's
So,
the only way it can stay identified.
exactly. Yeah.
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 Yeah. Um,
Wow. Yeah. So have a look, Linda. See what else we got. We still got 15 minutes here. What else you got? I'm kind of what else do I
um,
have here?
so we can talk about triggers. So, you know, sometimes the ego can trigger different types of emotions. Usually the emotion comes first and then the thought.
Yeah,
Uh,
we talked about that a little while ago with the just briefly though.
yep.
Yeah.
But we have emotional triggers, right? So there are times when the mind can trigger an emotion.
Yep.
And the triggers sometimes they can be just memories, um, familiarity, and again that becomes a question: is it the emotions and then the mind comes on board, or is it the other way around? But usually the intensity is the trigger in the mind. So we have an emotion, the mind has the trigger, which then brings the emotion into intensity, and then we have this. See, because when we have an original trauma, the original trauma tends to be this big, but then we have a trigger. So that the mind says, okay, hold on, I can see things kind of happening the same way that original trauma happens. Let's go. We need to fight, right? So we know we need to handle it this way.
Yeah.
So,
And you use the word the mind, but you're actually meaning the ego comes in there.
yeah,
Yeah.
the ego will step in and say, hey, we need to deal with it this way, right? So it comes on board and it says, we know how to deal with this. So now what happens is that original trauma and that emotional reaction was like this. Now we've compounded it to be like this. So now the mind says, okay, when we have this emotion, this, that, and this, that, and this, that now will trigger that emotion.
Again, the ego telling the story.
The
And
ego,
every time it tells that same story, it blows it up and
it
blows it
blows
up
it up.
and blows it up.
That's right. So now it says, okay, so we started off, it was only this, only a couple little things happening, and we had that emotional reaction. Then we have a bunch of mind stuff happening, like, okay, we know this and that. But now the mind says it's gotten bigger now. So now it says, oh, when I see that, this must be happening again. Right. So then it has that emotional reaction. Then it gets bigger.
Mhm.
Right. So
So
then
that's
now
what,
he's more.
exactly. So again, we're talking about the mind telling the stories, the mind, not the mind, rather, well, the mind, the ego telling the stories, the ego being the illusion, right? And
That's
being able to stop that thought, to stop that not stop the emotion, but to become aware of what is happening, what's
yeah,
actually happening.
yes. And what is actually happening is you're getting these emotional triggers because there's something to learn from the emotion, right? And so the mind is actually working in your favor, because if the emotion is triggered, then you have a chance to learn. But we've been so disconnected from our emotions and our emotional responses through the way our society is just brought up, right? That when we have emotions, we don't know how to transmute them, we don't know how to metabolize them. So what happens is they go back down. instead of working through, they go back down. So the mind now is actually working in your favor because it says, okay, I can see this, that, this, that, this, that, more and more and more. We're going to trigger that emotion and maybe you will learn it this time.
Yeah. And that really, that every time we talk about something like this, Linda, it really brings to it really brings to my mind the way that little boys are taught to, right? Because for me, little boys, I mean girls as well, but little boys are always told, oh, you mustn't cry and be a big boy. You big boys don't cry. And and that's kind of pushing that emotion down, right? So consequently, we've got a world full of men that don't express emotion. They don't know how, because they've always been taught to push that down, to push that emotion down and not deal with it. Not so, unless the man or the male in whatever the case may be is actually realizing and going through and doing the spiritual work or doing the work, period, those emotions are really pressed.
They really are. They really are. And it's sad because then you see a bunch of males who are scared to express emotion. It's such a deep fear that they would rather suffer and
Suffer inside than
suffer
have it, then bring it out and deal with it and work with
exactly, bring it out in these not healthy manners. Then then they're deemed, oh, what is wrong with that guy? Oh, what is, instead of being taught to love and to open up and allow themselves to speak about what's actually happening.
Right. And then we can look at it on the other side with the female, who we're always told and taught from a very young age, oh, you're just too emotional. You're just too emotional. So then you kind of don't want to show a lot of emotion out in public because people are going to think that you're too emotional. And it all comes back to how we're programmed with society and our ego then coming in to react in a way that's supposed to be socially acceptable. Yeah. Right? So it's that vicious circle. It's that vicious circle.
It truly, truly, truly is. And the more we can interrupt the terrible language that the ego has, especially around emotion, the more we can interrupt that cycle. So, and say, you know what, I love you, you're valid. And, having the ego say that to your emotions, sometimes just that alone, yes. And the emotion can dissipate and it's done.
Yeah.
It's a lot of times we get such extreme emotions because we have the disconnect between the ego and the energy body. Because
words are so powerful.
They are very powerful.
Words are so powerful. So the words, and we've done an episode on this, the words that we say to ourselves. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep, exactly it. And like I said, it's about awareness. It's about stopping the mind when it's in a destructive mode.
Absolutely. So it's not about killing. It's not about killing the ego. It's about working with the ego and integrating the ego so that we can use it as the tool it's meant to be.
That's right. That's right. And there was another quote that I wanted to say. I read this in the Osho Zen Tarot cards, which anybody who, these have been my right hand tarot cards my whole life. I got introduced to them when I was 19 years old, 18 probably. And I've given so many decks away. And if you're, deeply wanting to do the spiritual evolvement, I find that is really a great deck to have. But you cannot lose what wasn't yours to begin with. Right? So if you've lost something in your life, and the mind can be very cunning over this, the materialistic feelings, right? Like the ownership feelings that it can have. And you cannot lose something that wasn't truly yours And that's like higher self. That's not truly belong to the higher self. Let's face it. We're not leaving with anything anyway.
That's right. Absolutely. And
Not even
that's,
the
and
body.
that's, and that's what we said in the beginning, right? The ego is materialistic. It's very materialistic.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and that's something that we all need to be mindful of.
Hmm. Hmm. I found that phrase, you cannot lose something that wasn't yours to begin with, has been so helpful
Mhm.
it throughout my life when my mind can be like, blah, 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 blah. Because there's always that deep fear that you're going to lose something, right?
Yeah.
It could be a part of yourself. It could be part of, whatever, right? The mind is
Mhm.
always grappling at something.
Always with the stories. Yeah.
Mhm.
It's so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So next week we are doing sorry, Linda, did you have anything else on the ego?
You know what? The only other thing that I think I had that I wanted to say was, so the mind has four major things it's trying to do all the time. It's trying to survive.
Mhm.
It's trying to help you be happy.
Mhm.
It wants direction, so it needs direction, and it needs to learn and grow.
Absolutely.
Those four things,
Absolutely.
you need to be feeding that into the ego all the time. And I'm sure if you can, when it's doing its thing, whatever it is, if you ask yourself, is this survival? Is this making me happy? What do I need to be happy right now? What do I need to be happy right now? Or what direction does the mind need? Or how can I learn and grow? And I think that if we could just intervene with one of those thoughts, or even ask all of those questions, the mind will respond.
Mhm.
And we're just interrupting thoughts. Anyway, so
Yeah.
yes, that's it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Interrupting thoughts. Yeah. Yeah. So next week we are going to be doing an episode on the pineal gland.
Yeah.
That's going to be another one that's that's pretty interesting. So yeah, I'm just checking to see if there's any other comments. So we don't have anything else. So next week, all right, we're doing the episode on the pineal gland. Linda, do you have any announcements at all?
Only that the inner child retreat is starting again this weekend. And I'm
Nice.
really excited. The long program is coming, and I'm going to be starting that on Saturday. So it's just very exciting to keep moving forward.
Good, good. And the only thing I have is, for those of you that know me, some of you don't know me, I am big into gardening and herbs and all that kind of stuff, and kind of doing things like learning to do things that were done way, way back when, kind of, off grid kind of stuff. That's kind of my passion. I keep saying I was born in the wrong era, but whatever. And my husband enjoys it as well. So I've started a group on Facebook, and I'll post the link to it on the Where's Your Focus podcast page. But what it is, it's called Back to Basics. And it's basically a group for anybody who is interested in either learning, the lost ways kind of thing, or anybody who has experience in doing stuff that is willing to go and make posts and help anybody else that's in the group. So basically it's about tips and tricks of anything anything going back to the basics. There's nothing about um, you can't advertise any services or anything like that on there. It's basically just a free-for-all group for people who are going in and making recommendations or tips or tricks or whatever on anything that we're doing. An example is, my husband and I last year we started making our own charcoal. And so that's something that we make ourselves now. We don't buy charcoal anymore. It's something that we make, and we love it. And I'll be posting a video of that and how we're doing that on this group. So if you're interested, by all means, go in and request to join. There's no criteria. Anybody can join. The only thing is that everybody has to be, nice to each other, of course, right? So that's one of the things that I have going on. And shout outs. Do we have any shout outs at all?
You know what? I don't.
I don't either. I know I was supposed to have a look through my things yesterday to come up with a shout out, because we like to have a shout out for at least, every week, or if we miss one, which obviously we're going to miss one today.
We're shouting out our viewers today.
Oh,
Thank you.
yay. Yes. Thank you. Thank you. My goodness, for tuning in again. We love you guys. We
Yes.
love having you come in. We'd love for you to share the videos, and your participation really means a lot to us.
It really does.
Yeah. So next week we'll be doing the pineal gland again. Anything else for you today, Linda?
Nope. That's it.
Nope. We're good. So, and again, we're pretty much right on time. We're 3:00.
Virtual high five.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Take care. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.